Welcome back to Hytale Lore. We're here with a few different little concepts, a few different little theories today. First of which has to do with the Hytale portals. We touched on the magic system last time, and how much of it has to do with the crystals in the game, and how they're used in the tops of the staffs and everything. But one thing we did not really touch on is, if I go into here, we do have, down at the bottom of this little character panel, we have health, stamina, and we have mana. Mana is not really something that's in the game yet, but it is represented by this little blue symbol. And when we look in little places like this that have to do with magic, we see a lot of blue plants, blue things. They're all over the place, and this specifically is an Azure fruit, which we're going to come back to in a moment, so put a pin in that, remember it, put it in the back of your head somewhere. We're down here in the entrance to the Forgotten Temple. Oh my god, I forgot I was in exploration. He's going to try to kill me. We can even see, the blue glow from back here from the mushroom and another one of those Azure fruits. And then, of course, the portal itself is glowing blue. When we pass through, we enter the beautiful Forgotten Temple with many a blue plant, blue sparkling lights, and these blue rings around these floating chunks of rock that use the same symbols as the ring around the portal. It's just they're stretched out a little bit more. They do kind of sort of remind me of, oh, that's interesting. When we move this way, the rings don't move anymore. Do you see that? When we move this way, they freeze. They stop moving. Interesting. Interesting little bug I've just discovered. It really does remind me of the runes on things like this. Nope. Things like this. They're not the same. I've checked. I've looked. But they're similar. They make me think of it. But anyways, where does all of this blue light, blue magic come from? Where does it stem from? Where can we see it in the world? I want to say hi to the Clops. Hello, little guy. This is so cute. I love him. I love him. Anyways, where does all of this magic come from? I feel like the safe answer is that this is Gaia's magic. Also, I do want to quickly point out what some of you guys pointed out to me ages ago. These statues are discoverable in the Forgotten Temple off to the sides here. And of course we have the knights guarding the doors here. So they do all seem to be related to Gaia. That was a little note from an old video, if you've seen it. But if we go back to regular old Orbis, or echoes of Orbis, nobody can seem to decide for sure which one it is. I'm gonna fly over here. Let's speed ourselves up to the beautiful Azure forest. Oh, and some Quebecs. Hello, little guys. How are you? Here we go to the Azure forest. One of my favorite biomes in the game. I was super excited about this even before the game came out. I was like, this is the place where I want to be. And I love it. I love them so much. I think they're gorgeous. The other really interesting thing is that this is where you get materials to make portals in the game. So if you did not know, what is it listed under? Teleporter. Teleporter is something that you can make in the game. And you make it, I believe, with an Arcanist workbench. It's been a minute since I made one of these. Yeah, absolutely. Azure log, Azure kelp. And then there's other items here that you can craft after discovery as well. You can even see the little blue thing here. But you make them using elements from this biome specifically, this blue bioluminescent glowing biome, which makes a lot of sense considering that, you know, light is supposed to be Gaia's primary element. When you set, like, you know, earth and wind and fire and water aside, light is supposed to be her primary element. And we can see the glowing crystals that are in here. I don't see any of... Here it is. Here it is. This is the Azure kelp that you use for those teleporters. It's absolutely beautiful. Let's set the time All in caps. Time set midnight. And look at that. Look at how gorgeous that is. That with the crystals. And this place absolutely glows. The other really interesting thing about the Azure Forest, when you set aside the fact that like the whole thing is literally magical and you use it to form teleporters, with the same color items as the glowing portals that you already find leading to Forgotten Temples. There are these stone monoliths. Let's turn the time steady day back to day. Ooh, and it's foggy and misty. I just know the nighttime is not going to be kind in YouTube compression. But oh, look at the sparkles on the water. That was gorgeous. Oh, I love this game so much. Anyways, I'm getting distracted by the ambiance. I'm getting distracted. These monoliths, these pillars, look very, very similar to the things that we get when we look up, let's just say, magic. No, that's not what I'm after. Let's just say druid. Unique Earth Druid Circle. We get something like this. Yeah, we get these monuments, these pillars. It just made me think, especially because the pillars, for all these different elements, we looked at these in the last video as well, they're supposed to be centered around these little podiums that hold crystals. Presumably, at some point in the game to get some sort of magic. Unless they change that up in the future, which they very well may do. But it looks very similar to the layout of these, where they're just ringing it. Like, you see them right along the edges of the biome, as if the entire thing is a big old magic circle with crystals inside. Really cool, really thoughtful design, particularly because we don't really see pillars like this elsewhere in the world, and so when we see them here, they do stand out. They do stand out in the way they're doing their little groupings. Almost a little bit Stonehenge coded, Stonehenge themed. I love it so much. Oh my goodness, I just noticed this too, that the moss is also set up in circles. That's very fairy circle-like, isn't it? Wait, that's cute. I've never noticed this before. They do kind of look like little fairy circles. They should have mushrooms that also spawn along rings like that. Although now that I know how to do world generation, I could just make that myself. I could just do that myself. And I think I will. I think I will. Now this I've just pasted into the world. This is a crypt entrance. This is a structure that sometimes spawns here in Zone 1 in the Emerald Wilds. I cannot find an instance of it in this world in particular, but it spawns as a whole graveyard, and this big mausoleum will basically lead you down deeper and deeper into the world. It seems to be a crypt specifically for these old knights. Obviously, we can see their statues inside of the Forgotten Temple, which means that we know that they worshipped Gaia, and we can see Gaia's symbol on their shield. So it has to do with Gaia, and then presumably you're fighting... when you're fighting skeletons in here, you're fighting the remnants of Gaia's people, which is a little bit grim. This is what's become of them. But the other interesting thing is that these lanterns, lost civilization lanterns, also glue with the little blue light. They also glow with the little blue light. Just like the portals do. Obviously, it's a little brighter. The blue is a little more subtle. But still, that's blue. That's blue. If we look up lost civilization, these are a lot of things that you just find throughout ruins and old buildings through the world, and we see these braziers. I don't remember how to pronounce it. We see these fires that have the same blue light as well. And if you've watched recent videos, you know that this is where I got a little hung up because the wraiths that roam throughout Zone 4, the ones that look like Grim Reapers, they've got a very similar colored light to these things, which is a really similar colored light to the light temple lights. Right here. In fact, this is the exact color of fire that they have. I was thinking about this more. It's also very similar to the color of these guys' eyes. Hold still. No, look at me. Look at me. Do you see? There's been a lot of theories with the skeletons about how they became undead. Is it their own choice? Did they do this to themselves? Have they been cursed? Is it the absence of Gaia? What's going on? There's another theory that it's because of the element of wind is light blue and that represents freedom, and now they have freedom to death, so they have light blue eyes. But here we can see is very, very similar to the color of the fire that's used in the Gaian temples and used to decorate the, I guess, significant places left behind by this lost civilization that used to worship Gaia. Is this dead ivy? That's very cool. I've not built with this yet. That's very cool looking. Another element that we haven't really touched on much is the simple fact that when you descend far below Zone 1, or any zone really, but here we are in Zone 1, you get to these ruins. These human ruins that are down here, and amidst these ruins, hey there, we find these fire steel golems, which is another thing I want to touch on in just a second, but we also find creatures and NPCs that we would typically associate with Zone 4 specifically. We even have this mage up here, which is very interesting considering the whole collapse of humanity, and maybe what we've talked about with these spooky fire people and the fact that they seemed to stop worshipping Gaia may have spread through more of the world than we thought. I had somebody in my Discord, which we do have a Discord if you want to join, links down below, mentioned that they had found a decapitated Zone 4 statue of Gaia that was in Zone 1. And I'm assuming that's not some bug or accidental spawn. I'm assuming that was something purposeful. But it's very, very interesting to consider the fact that either way you cut it, these fiery skeletons are hanging out beneath the entire world. They're always down here in these ruins, where it looks like, yeah, there were human structures down here. And now they're not. Now they're gone. Now they're destroyed. We also see a lot of these guys. And they do seem to be spawning along with these human structures, like on top of them. And somebody had brought up in the previous video where we were talking about magic. There are these gemstones, and when you read the gemstones, they say, the hearts of mighty golems are often forged of these gemstones. Arcanists once sought the aid of more industrial diggers to locate rich pockets deep underground. Interesting, because somebody had brought up maybe those industrial diggers are a fire steel golem because they look a little bit more created, like they look industrial. Oh, the golems, the premise of a golem, if you didn't know, in traditional folklore and mythology, is that it is created. It is a servant that is made, that's animated earth, basically, more or less. These ones do look very industrial in their creation. Although, I would say these ones look designed for battle with the spikes that they have on their hands. But I don't know, what if those spikes were replaced with, say, a pickaxe, and these guys were set to mining, and they are just lit by fire, right? And so then when they can find gemstones, then the creators of these golems could actually make golems using gemstones instead of just this fire. Interesting theory. Interesting theory. Whatever did happen to the humans, realistically, they can't have been gone for all that long. If we're taking what we're given in the game very, very literally, these wooden crates, these wooden elements of their buildings are still standing. And wood decays, it rots. And so inside of archaeological digs, see the cloth too, the cloth would rot away. Inside of dig sites, typically archaeologists have to kind of fill in the places where wood would have been. They can say, oh, here's where beams were, and they're not there anymore. All that's left is the stone or the clay. But here we still have the wood. It's not rotted away. It's not all decayed. Which means it really can't have been all that long ago that all of this happened. Then we get these structures. This one is spawned a little bit awkwardly. But these, when you're searching through the game files, seem to be listed as challenge structures, which certainly makes sense. They look like dungeon entrances, and they use the same build palette as the Outlanders do, where we have this dark slate material and we have these green fires. Eventually, presumably, these will be buildings where you get to challenge the forces of the void. Presumably these are sort of, it looks very much like a crypt, like a mausoleum of some sort, that are spread throughout the world where there are forces of the void very much present inside. What exactly is going to be down there, we do not know. Although I do find the idea of doing a sort of like, here's all the work in progress sign buildings in the game, very interesting. Let me know if that's something that you guys would also like to see. And if so, then I'll make it. Now, this is something we really haven't touched on in the videos much. I think it was mentioned maybe one time. The fact that beneath Zone 2, when you are diving down in the depths, before you get so low that you encounter all of the fire people stuff down here. Look at this sort of floating stalagmites. Hey there. Before you hit all of those, in the middle region of the caves, you hit these structures that are full of wind temple elements. And so you see in here, you know, a collection of old materials left from whoever used to live here, but all of these, the chests, the pots, everything is denoted as wind temple. And we can see a lot of these things in here. There's a lot that's unused. So some of these big doors are not things that I've seen spawning inside of here. But really, really interesting stuff, because it looks like these elements that we have underground have sunk beneath the dunes. I mean, we see elements in here like these windows that should be above ground. I don't think I've seen them underground, but point being, the only place that we've seen any of these wind temple materials, as far as I have seen at least, has been underground, which means all of this has sunk beneath the dunes. You can even, there's some very, very large pillars that can spawn. Hey, Scarix. Yeah. That can spawn as well. Which look like the pillars that would hold up, you know, like a giant pyramid or something. If you don't know, a lot of pyramids, they have things that go far into the ground for support, for structure. We can see another example of wind temples right here, and we get it looks like a little spellcaster here. He's even got little bobs that look very mana-colored, if you ask me, that are following him around. Right now, all of these structures are very closed off, which could be because they're missing parts of the prefabs and maybe they'll be more connected to other like tunnels or caves or something in the future. Or maybe it's simply that they sank and they used to be up here and now they are all disparately located underground. I assume there's a lot of fleshing out to do with these too, but interesting to think that yes, there is yet another distinct human civilization represented in the game here. Look at that. That's for sure a coffin right there. Here's another little fun fact for you. Sometimes in the underground, in Zone 2... Ooh, look at these. These are beautiful. Gosh, I get so distracted by the pretty blocks. Sometimes underground, you can find jails. You can find cell systems. And I don't believe there's prisoners inside. At least I've never seen any. But there are skeletons, which does make you wonder what happened to the prisoner. But yeah, there's little places where people would be, I guess, standing watch outside, watching over the prisoners. This doesn't seem like a particularly safe place to keep people. Particularly, these are boom mushrooms too, aren't they? And yet, here they are, these caves. Containing the... Hello, goblin. Containing these jail cells towards the bottom of the world. What sort of prisoners must they have been keeping down here, both to risk the caves and the other inhabitants, and also to warrant keeping them down here, all the way down here? Or maybe this is just the safest location, because if you're around sand, you can just dig your way out. And if you're around sandstone, it gets a little bit harder. But the lengths that would have been taken in order to imprison somebody here seem pretty extreme. Hey there. Oh, this is very interesting too. This is something that you rarely see, or at least I've rarely seen. But these look like they're being used as lamps. The larvae, do they not? Which is very interesting considering that the Will you? Shh. I know they're dying, but I don't mind. Whoa. I don't mind that they're dying. The primordial scarix seem to use those very larvae as lamps. And here they are, kind of in another lamp formation, almost as if they are replicating the architecture that their ancestors used to use, used to have. But now all they can do is this. All they can do is this. This is pretty sad. It's pretty nasty, if you ask me. Here's another fun fact from the caves for you. When you reach the underground of Zone 4 and you encounter these beautiful bioluminescent jungles that are below ground, every so often you have a chance of encountering a structure that looks like this. It looks like a large gateway, and it has some Slothian elements here. The roofs here are very Slothian, just like they have up here in their little rooftop homes, in their treetop homes. This, in the game files, is called a Slothian temple. God, it looks so cool with the dinosaurs flying around. It looks so cool. This is a Slothian temple. What did they worship is the biggest question here. Were they worshippers of Gaia? Really interesting thing with the Slothians so far is that when you go into the entity spawner, and we go to Slothians here, most of the different civilizations in the game, they have a fairly similar social structure. A lot of them have a shaman or something that's the equivalent of a shaman. The Slothians, we cannot see any of their face. There we go. Any of their faces. They don't have a shaman. The closest we get, I guess, is just an elder, but it's literally just an old Slothian. And so, no magic wielders, which is very interesting. So I wonder what they worshipped down here. We don't really seem to have any other clues other than that they have temples. And the temples seem very overgrown and not in a great state of repair, which makes me scared for the Slothians. Because what happened to your temples? Or maybe they used to be for Gaia, and now that Gaia's gone silent, the temples have fallen out of repair because nobody's answering. But it is interesting to me that so far they don't seem to have any sort of shaman class when they're literally surrounded by crystals, which every other civilization, or almost every other civilization, seems to very directly use in magic. They use crystals for their staffs to channel magic, and different crystals seem to have different powers, like red for fire. And here they even have these crystal trees. These are crystal wood trees. Even the inside of them looks crystalline. And yet they don't seem to have shamans. I wonder if that's something that will eventually be added. Another fun fact for you. We have all these dinosaurs down here. Let's see if we can find a big one. I mean, you guys will do. Oh, it's sleeping. That's cute. That's cute. So, there are, if you did not know, saurians. Which, I mean, we only got to see them side by side for a very quick second before it moved on. But they look very, very similar to the dinosaurs that are underneath Zone 4. They've got those same bioluminescent frills off their head, and I wonder if these were living alongside the Slothians down here. In fact, in Slothian villages, we can see lampposts that have decorative blocks that seem... Oh, look, there's another part of a temple. Very interesting. We can see Slothian decorative blocks that look like they're done in a depiction of a dinosaur. Oh, this is a cute little room all by itself. Let's put it right there. See? Very much a dinosaur. Or a saurian. I don't know what in the world it would mean if that was a saurian and not a dinosaur. But whenever these caves get fully fleshed out, it's going to be fascinating to see all these cultures living together. Although I will say, on a world gen front, that these should totally have... Ooh, look. Bad crystals. These should totally have more space to accommodate all those civilizations. There should be pockets for the Saurians, pockets for the Slothians, or it's just not really going to make sense. There should be a broader generation and maybe a little bit of variation in the forests, in the caves down here that would allow those different civilizations space to flourish on their own. That would make it really, really cool and would be an excellent sell for these different groups of people living alongside one another when it doesn't necessarily look like they would initially get along. Here we are inside of Zone 2, and throughout Zone 2 we get these places where there are these enormous skeletons that have been left behind. If you've watched all my videos, you probably know this theory already, but it's one that is really exciting to me because inside of these big skeletons, largely what we get are rib cages. It's just a bunch of rib cages over and over. The interesting thing here is that we have a statue. This is a statue of a legendary beast. And it seems to be in the same style as the wind temples. So this, if I were to use a little conjecture here, looks as though it would be the statue that the wind temple humans worshipped before their own collapse. Statue of a legendary beast, it reads. What would be more legendary than an enormous snake, an enormous cobra, mayhaps, given the design of this, that wandered Zone 2 and was eventually killed? If there was actually a creature like this, which, I mean, there was. Whatever creature this was would have posed an enormous threat to whoever lived alongside it. And it seems only natural, then, that these creatures would have been killed off by necessity, right? A legendary beast, they worshipped it because they were afraid of it. What are you supposed to do with something that is so much bigger and more terrifying than you? You have two options: appease it and work with it, or get rid of it. And clearly the first was attempted, but the second was done. When that happened, we don't know. Long enough for these entire carcasses to rot, but not long enough, it seems, for them to completely sink beneath the sand the way that the sand people did. So it looks like those wind temples descended underneath the sand when those snakes were still roaming around. Interesting to think about. And it does make me wonder if even the Farons in their villages like this have used parts of those giant creatures to build their villages too. We're over here in another Zone 4. And I would like to pose a thought here, which is that these forests in particular, these burnt forests that have these little twisty trees, these trees are the same sort of design and shape as the Azure forest trees in Zone 1. Same thing going on, same twisty trees. And here they are all burnt to a crisp. Which does make me wonder if this had something to do with the Zone 4 Crucibles, people's downfall as well. They had these magic forests, it seems, at their disposal, and it makes me wonder what the landscape looked like. Did it look very similar to Zone 1? Before it got all decimated, all devastated and destroyed? Because these trees are awfully similar. Was this an Azure forest before it got destroyed? Were these things here proper ponds and riverbeds? And this is all we have left now? The other interesting thing is that this could very well be the spawn point for creatures that we do not yet have in the game. So I just touched on the Saurians, now let's bring in another one that looks like it may end up belonging here. The Bramblekins. These we previously knew as the Fawns, but now we know them as the Bramblekins. And given that red belt that they have around their waist, it looks like they could live here in Zone 4. They look awfully frightening. And it's a little bit of a debate whether they live here or if they live inside of Zone 3. We don't really know. But what do you guys think? If you have an opinion, if you have a guess, go ahead and drop it in the comments below. I would love to read it. This is our last little bit of theory for the day. We're here in one of the Outlanders' wintry outposts, and we can see in the center of this, kind of huddled in by all these walls and buildings, are a couple very important structures. First of all, their watery ritual room, in which they always spawn like this, and if you come in exploration mode, they will all charge out at you together, where they are using their void water magic in order to perform a ritual on this outlander brute. Outside, we see this little monolith with the Watcher. There's been some debate on what the Watcher is. If you're curious about this, go check out the video on the gods and on the Outlanders that I have up on the channel already. But the Outlander is a deity that they worship. We can see them all throughout many different structures. And a very interesting structure that they have, I've just not found an example of it in this world yet, is one in which there is a ring of these monoliths in a very like stone druid circle sort of setup, where these watchers are, in which you go through a central edifice down beneath the earth and you encounter other statues of the Watcher and of what we believe is Varen. It's the Outlander deity. Now, the Watcher, because there's references to these whispers and the fact that it was here before the Outlanders, some people have believed that this is Gaia, which could be. It's a very interesting theory. But what I really cannot avoid noticing here is that from the spawn point of this monolith, this stuff, these poison roots, are radiating outwards. This could be a representation of maybe this is Gaia and these are the whispers that they're hearing from Gaia, and she's also been captured by Varen, and so the corruption is also now stemming from her, which would be a terrifying thought. But then if that's the case, why isn't that also happening at her other temples throughout the world or in the Forgotten Temple? It doesn't seem to be the case there. Maybe it's just because this is a place in the world where Varen's magic is stronger, but this does seem to be a little suggestion that this is not Gaia, that this is something else that's also poisoning and corrupting the world. It has Varen's green glowing eye color in there, right? And then it has these poison roots extending specifically from it in the middle. And if we know anything about these poison elements in the world, they are corruptive elements from the void and from Varen, which does not seem to speak super well on the nature of the Watcher. Now that is all we have today. I hope you enjoyed this style of video. In the last poll, the element that won was just a variety of lore. No theme, just chat for a little while. That's exactly what we did. So if you liked this, we might do something like this again. I really do need the game to update to give me even more. There's still stuff in here that I haven't like touched on. There's still more to cover, trust. We still got material. But we do need those chapter updates to come soon. Now, this is completely unrelated, so if you just came from lore, if you just came for lore, then you can go ahead and hop out. Oh, that's not what I want. And that is totally fine, but I've been working very hard on another project. I know the build channel has been very quiet recently, but it'll come back in swinging fairly soon with a few new elements that I'm making for this project specifically. I will be entering the mod jam in the world generation category. I have spent the past 2 weeks learning the tools, and I have learned how to craft biomes and add ambiance and weather and all that good stuff, and how to piece them all together into a world. Let's drop down here. I think we can kind of slow ourselves down. There's a lot of work left to do on this, but it's very exciting for me, and I want to show off a little bit of it, even though it has a long way to go. It has a very long way to go. There's a bunch of different biomes here that are currently spawning together, and like I said, there's a lot of work left to do. A lot of rearranging of all of these vegetation. A lot to do with the materials. Right now you'll see that this is just mossy stone, and that's it. That's all the cliff sides are made out of. That's all they have. And then a lot to do with the caves as well. There are caves, they're pretty bad right now, and they need a lot more variety. Some big grand sections in them, I should think, and some really cool elements to explore throughout different parts of the world. But we are, in a way, reimagining some classic Hytale elements here. I think the fact that I've spent so long digging into the lore of the game has given me a very interesting approach to generating a world, because I'm doing so thinking about the creatures that are going to live here and their relationship to the world, and how I can do a little bit of environmental storytelling using all of that. There's a lot of options for storytelling inside of this world generation because you get to pick literally everything. The way that the fog lays, the way the sky looks, where all of the plants spawn. You see that little twisty piece out in the distance? I love that thing. And so I will be bringing in a lot of Hytale creatures into this. Planned so far are Trorks, Quebecs, and Clops. And we'll see if I get further than that by the time the mod jam is done. I've done a lot in 2 weeks. I've never coded before, never done any programming before, and I've been able to figure out the way that the entire game communicates with itself. I feel confident that I could change any element in this game that I wanted to. And I figured out how to create all these biomes and put them together. I've made about 20 so far. Only 7 are represented in this world at this moment in time. And we have so much left to add that it is so vibey, so moody in here. I love it so much. In fact, I would really love to set this to night before we go. Let's do midnight. Oh, look at this. Eventually, this is going to be rich with creatures, animals, prefabs, custom prefabs, to be clear. An even cooler world generation than this, because I still have over 5 weeks left to go on this project. Which means that by the time I'm done, the world generation is going to look cooler than this, because this is only 2 weeks of learning from scratch, from the ground up. Imagine what I can do with over another month left. I want to make this an incredible world that people are really excited to explore, that really gets the imagination going. It's been really exciting for me to take all of the storytelling and all of the lore experiments and investigating that we've done on this channel and use them in order to inform what I create over here. What would best fit the world of Orbis? How can I bring its vision to life? How can I do environmental storytelling before there's proper exploration mode and chapters and quests? How can I bring that into the game in a way that's exciting for the player to explore? How can I make terrain that continues to open up and unfold in ways that are exciting for the player to explore? That is the mission. And this is just the beginning. So I will see you next week for more lore, and I will see you also next week for more world gen if that's something that you are interested in. It will in the near future be open for beta testing. It's going to be rough at the beginning, but that's how this goes. In classic Hytale fashion, we make it exist first, and we make it beautiful later. So I will see you later. Happy Hytaling.